The goal and the mission is to stomp the divide between Black tech workers and to fundamentally influence and effect change on an industry that has historically not sought parity with respect to the Black worker.
You're listening to KBcast, the cybersecurity podcast for all executives. Cutting through the jargon and hype to understand the landscape where risk and technology meet. Now, here's your host, Carissa Breen.
Belinda, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here. I met you on a conference, I think it was Carmen's conference a few months ago, and then I spoke with you. I loved your energy, I loved your vibe, I loved your just positivity, and I wanted to illuminate not only you as a person, but also what you're doing day to day. I think it's really interesting in terms of Black technology, and I want to talk about that in detail because I believe a lot of people need to hear about what you guys do day to day. But before we jump into that, we always like to start our podcast off with talking about you and your journey. So can you please talk our listeners through where you started to where you are now?
Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Whenever I start any kind of presentation or speaking engagement, I like to begin with my personal motto, which is I do not want you to be impressed by me. I want you to be blessed by me. And please keep in mind that this is a motto that I use both personally and professionally throughout all my walks of life. Currently, I'm a resident of Blythewood, South Carolina, which actually is a suburb of our capital, which is Columbia, South Carolina, with my husband of this year be 21 years. So I'm a Army veteran, so I'm a proud veteran spouse, and I have two wonderful children. My son Aaron is 18, and my daughter Camille, who is 13. Forrest, I like to give you a little bit about my leadership style, or the way I like to actually live my life, Forrest, like leading others and being a mentor, just providing a helping hand. I see myself as a selfless leader, which I mean, which to me is the only true meaning of being a leader. You have to be able to put others above yourself. So I believe in expressing confidence, commitment, and communication, and just a dedication to all people who seek any kind of need or resources. A little bit about my educational background. Actually, I have a bachelor's degree in art education, the teaching of visual arts, and from one of our historic HBCUs here in South Carolina, the historic Benedict College. And I have my master's degree in education, specializing in divergent learning from Columbia College, which is also here in South Carolina. Currently, professionally, I am the chapter president for Blacks in Technology Columbia, which is actually only one of more than 47 international chapters of the Great Blacks in Technology Foundation, nonprofit 501c3 organization. The goal and the mission is to stomp the divide between Black tech workers and to fundamentally influence and effect change on an industry that has historically not sought parity with respect to the Black worker. The intent of Blacks in Technology is to level the playing field through training, education, networking, and mentorship with the support of our allies, partners, sponsors, and most importantly, our global members. And I love spreading the great word about Blacks in technology because, in essence, it exemplifies everything that I believe and aspire to for as the future. Along with this, I also commit myself to public service. I think that's where I know that's where all of my blessings come from. So if I can't reach back and bring somebody up, it's almost like, I'm not doing anything. I cease to exist. A little bit about my background, how I got to this area, especially within the technology. seeing that the majority of my background was in education, but I've always had a love for technology. I didn't have a lot of persons within my community, although they were technologically inclined, but I didn't see persons that looked like me represented in what we would call the more advanced tech career options and entrepreneurship opportunities that we see today. So it took me from actually branching out and actually getting out into the world and more of a professional and even a relationship built network, to see that this really existed. But along the way, I have to look back to the persons that made so many different sacrifices for me to be where I am, making sure that I had every opportunity to reach for any dream that I wanted to, and especially with technology and being a female in technology and not wanting to be perceived as anything more than someone to answer the phone, in a technological career aspect. So I had a lot of persons who stood in the gaps. So that's another reason that I really am big on community service. So alongside with Blacks in Technology, Columbia, I also volunteer in other endeavors. Um, One, for instance, is actually the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Columbia, South Carolina chapter, whose mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls and to promote leadership, development, and gender equality in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. This platform also gives me an opportunity to work with not just adult females, but really grasping in to those young African American females that remind me so much of me when I look at them, and to just like with a parent to provide more resources than I had available to me. So it's kind of like passing it on and just adding a little spice on to that. Also, I am the vice chair for the South Carolina division of Skills USA, uh, actually part of the executive board for South Carolina. And what we do in this organization is that we serve thousands of high school, college, and middle school career and technology students and professional members enrolled in training programs in the trade, technology, occupations. So this also gives me the opportunity to reach not just a small pool of career and technology education students and not just a certain demographic, but all the greatness that South Carolina has to offer. And the list goes on and on. Like I say, I really like to be involved and I like to assist others the same way that people assisted me. Because I know the hurdles and the roadblocks, and I just want the road to be a little smoother for the persons that are coming up behind me. That I majored in art education to teach art, but really I didn't want to teach because personally I didn't believe that I could teach art and still do my own art as far as graphic design and visual arts. Later on, I was proven wrong. I taught both visual arts and graphic communications for over 16 years, both middle and high school level. Did that for a while and still had that thirst for technology, starting with the graphic design as far as the whole Adobe Creative Suite and working with photographs. And I am an avid photographer and I love that. So everything meshed together. Uh, Went on taking more leadership type roles as arts department coordinator and academic managers, but it's still like something was missing. And as far as the hurdles along the way, especially working in technology, not just being an African American in that field, but being a female, being a professional with disabilities. So you can kind of imagine the hurdles kind of just built upon themselves. But it just it just sparks this fire in me. It's like to not let anything deter me from doing what I want to do. So um, some years back, I started to take the technology angle much more seriously because as an introvert, I became kind of complacent and comfortable being in the background. Always assisting people with their technology, their software, any kind of tinkering, or providing facilitation and advice. But I was never taken serious. And I kind of thought maybe that's the status quo. But we all have that light bulb moment when someone tells you you can't do something because of this, or that's not an area that you're supposed to look into. So at that point, I made it my mission to encourage young people, older people, didn't matter. That strive for your dreams. If technology is something that you're interested in, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to provide the resources and the networking to make that happen.
That's excellent. I really, like I said, I enjoy your drive and your passion, because I can relate around when you sort of said like people, never taken seriously. I remember being like in my earlier 20s and had the sort of same impact, and even people misplaced who I was when I was in meetings and things like that. So I can totally relate to that, and I think that it's something, if you can't sort of persevere with, like you said, not letting anyone determine like your success or anything like that, it's something that can deter people, I think, in this space, because there are a lot of things that can go against you, and like we've seen it firsthand. And so for me, I was like, well, if I just got to keep persisting, and I know that eventually it'll change. So I really appreciate you talking through that story. But one of the things I'd really like to talk to you about now is, talk to me about Blacks in Technology. Like, what do you guys actually do?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you so very much. And basically, the purpose of our group is to network, learn best industry practices, and to advance your information technology career. Our goal and mission is to stomp the divide between Black tech workers and to fundamentally influence and effect change on an industry that, face it, that hasn't historically sought parity and respect to the Black worker. So our intent is to level the playing field through training, education, networking, and mentorship opportunities, and also with the support and not last of our allies, our partners, our sponsors, and most importantly, our global members. And currently, we are comprised of over 47 chapters, and we're within the U.S. and we're also national now, which is a great accomplishment, and we're steadily growing. And to give you a little bit more information, the Blacks in Technology Foundation itself is comprised of tech CEOs, business owners, CIOs, IT professionals, data scientists, UI, UX designers, programmers. The list goes on and on. But we also have help desk analysts, hiring managers. So various different disciplines. Um, but we're all like-minded people who seek a more inclusive tech industry.
So, talk to me a little bit more about the vision behind why the company was created. This is really interesting, and I want to be able to talk about this and illuminate this to people, because it's something that I like, and I really would like you to talk about that, because this is something that I believe people need to hear.
Yes, yes, and I'm very appreciative of this platform. And to begin answering that question, I'll have to start at the beginning with our director and founder, which is Mr. Greg Greenlee. He is the founder of the Blacks in Technology Foundation. And not only that, he's also over the Blacks in Technology LLC. He has spent over 17 years in the information technology field. His experience includes DevOps, engineering, networking, IT security, systems administration, virtualization, cloud computing, and storage administration. And actually, he began with his degree in computer network engineering from Cincinnati State College, and from there, and I love the way that everything began and like the wheels started turning. And actually, he was started off as an avid Linux user, comic book collector, and all around sports fan. But while residing in Cincinnati, him and his wife and his kids, um, he actually founded Blacks in Technology, or BIT, in 2009. And this was after attending a Linux technology conference. Although this was a free tech conference, he noticed a lack of Black people in attendance and no Black speakers. At that moment, that was the pivotal moment that motivated Greg to actually create and found the Blacks in Technology. And ever since then, he has been dedicated uh, throughout the decades, over a decade plus, to impact in the Black community and changing the world by building this entire organization focused on increasing representation and participation in Blacks in technology.
See, that's really interesting because so you're saying that the organization was developed purely because Greg went to an event, realized there were no other black people at the event, and the same thing has happened even in the female sector, like even in the female space as well. It's like I went to an event and there was like one female there. Um, so it seems to be sort of a common theme, right?
Yes.
And something that I alluded to before, it's like, well, when you look at that, what it can do is deter you then because you think, well, I'm the only one here and I don't like I don't have other females or whatever it may be. And then you kind of feel a little bit like a fish out of water. You feel a little bit left out because it's only you there.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And when you experience it, it's like almost something that you can't explain because you just have to be there. But it's like a feeling that you get. It's like, okay, where am I represented? And that's what me personally and my members and many others. It's like we just want to show that next generation what is possible because the bottom line is a child or student, what have you, can't really visualize themselves in a position if they don't know that position, that career, that entrepreneurial guide exists if they have never seen it. If they just can't relate, so they can't aspire to be something or become something greater than themselves, which they are fine, but it just it's not real unless they can see it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think that's something that I keep talking about in the industry as well. When people say we've got to get more women in, I'm like, well, they've got to see more women in the space then to be able to relate to that. Or else it's a bit harder then for younger people to aspire to want to work in this space because they don't see any women, for example.
Exactly, and I mean it's just a statistical fact. I mean the data is there, has proven it, so it's not just a, a feeling by itself. Because today is fairly common occurrence that Black workers in the technology industry find themselves the only Black person in the room or the only Black person on that team, and the fact is that Black people are underrepresented in every technology related career demographic, from tech startup founders seeking venture capital to core information technology workers seeking uh, pay equality. So that just goes back into our goal and our mission on stomping that divide.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I know that from our chats, one of the things that you sort of said to me was it was fairly common, or it's fairly common occurrence that black workers in technology find themselves the only black person in the room or the only black person on their team. So talk to me about some of the challenges that this then creates for a person.
And I have to start with me personally. When I got out of undergrad, college, once I graduated, actually I went into the printing industry as a Mac operator, worked in pre-flight. But in that department, I was not only the only African American, but I was also the only African American female in that department. And at that time, it was called electronic pre-press. Was that department? But where I saw the persons that looked like me, they were in another department, which was called the bindery. And that was the area where they box up all the printed materials, they bind everything, the stapling, working this machine equipment. And and me personally, I've always been an eclectic and very versatile person. So I've never really just concentrating on race, color, or anything, gender specific, because I just grew up in a like melting pot. But anyway, but you could feel it. And from there, even going into state government, working for different state agencies, uh, I was not the only black female in tech as a graphic artist. I was also, it was like one other African American, and that was like a male. So it was just like, but everyone else, were or different than him and I. So I felt it, and a lot, and I still see it, because now it's just like I'm more consciously aware. It could be something as simple as joining a webinar, or taking a boot camp or a class. When I accept a webinar to a conference or something, the first thing they give you, other than the agenda, is the list of speakers, and they'll give you the photographs, and usually they're on the website. So and there are some within, well, the majority that I've seen, the technology, where if there is a representation from African Americans, there may be like one or two.
Yeah, so that's crazy because I can totally understand what you're saying. So, in terms of like the direct challenges that this will probably have on someone, what are some other things that you could probably suggest? Because I mean, if you're someone that you're working in an environment, would you say that perhaps people wouldn't perform as well because they may feel like, well, it's just me here. Um, do you think those are some of the things that come into to mind for people?
Actually, I don't think that's what it is, but I think there's work to be done on both sides. Me personally, I am a relationship builder, and a little euphemism I like to utilize. I tell people, you have to get off of your front porch. And keeping in mind, I am from South Carolina, so it's one of the southern states. So you may hear a little country twang every now and then. And everybody, they can visualize the porch, because that's something that the older people used to do: would sit on the porch and talk, or and just but they, in their groups, the neighbors, the family, what have you. But in today's time, and I give them that reference, you have to get off of your front porch. You have to network with people who don't look like you, don't think the way that you think, and have a totally different background than you. And it's okay, because you're going to learn something new. And especially with my young mentees, I let them know, if you stay on the porch with the same group that you've been sitting and corresponding with, um, since you can remember, you're going to run out of things, because you've heard all the stories, you listen to all the music, you've seen all of this or that. It's like you're not going to learn anything new. To learn something new, to grasp new concepts, to go to a place you've never been, you can't be afraid to step off of your own porch. And you don't have to, it's one thing to love, your, whether it's your nationality, your group of cohorts, people, work in the same industry. But eventually, you are going to have to branch out to be what I like to say is an overall fully developed professional and human being. So there's room on both sides. Um, and as far as like, feeling that you are not adequate or talented or skilled, that kind of brings me back to the perceived gap. Far as technology, we hear all the time. To me, it's kind of like a sound bite. Now, I don't believe that there's a gap for as finding qualified persons from not just African American tech communities, but also any underrepresented community. I think that the gap lies in the marketing and the targeting. You're not targeting those areas, and by the time, if they get the information, when they get it, they're already behind the proverbial eight ball, because the normal target areas that they target with their marketing and outreach, those persons are going to get the information early. They're going to find out the requirements, whether it be for an internship, a job, apprenticeship, a scholarship, what have you. So they have time to prepare. And most oftenly, they find out about that information, very early on in life, whether it's, high school, before high school, or college. Whereas by the time that these underrepresented populations get the information, they may not, know all the criteria. And, it's like, okay, I didn't know I needed coding experience for this, or I needed, this software platform. I need to know this A, B, C, or D. Basically, they come upon careers and different interests, and the person is looking for a unicorn because and that deters a lot of underrepresented populations because it's like, well, I don't have 10 years experience in A, B, C, or D, but I have experience. So I say all that to say is that when you actually target the marketing of these programs, these careers, these ventures to all populations evenly, everyone will have that same starting chance. Because if you don't have that information early, and I really believe that information is truly power, you can't compete. And I think that's what it's all about, because that other person, they're going to have the referrals, they're going to have that established network. So when they apply, oftentimes their resume will never touch or go through an ATS system. It's going to go right in the hands of the hiring manager or beyond. So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Absolutely. And I think that, yeah, so I can see a lot of resemblances in terms of some of the other challenges that we're facing in the industry as well. So, what would be your advice? So, for people listening and they're thinking, well, I'm hearing what Belinda's saying, but I don't know how to market and target correctly. So, what would be your direct advice that if people aren't doing it today, perhaps they can implement this tomorrow or next week because you've given them your thoughts and advice on how they can go about doing it? Because a lot of people talk about this, but I honestly think they're just not sure about how to go about it.
Well, and I'm first of all, I'm a person that likes to break things down to their simplest form. You have to actually stop doing the status quo. And what I mean by that, one example is like grant funding or scholarships or providing funding to support this organization. Um, for example, you may have a great angel investor and they want to give back and they want to do more, for instance, to promote African Americans in technology. Oftentimes, they'll go to the largest African American organizations that they can think of, and then donate millions and thousands of dollars. Okay, and say, hey, I helped. I created these programs for this population. Okay, but this is my view. If I was wanting to do something different, and say, for instance, I was that angel investor, and this is for the person who wants to do something, but really just can't wrap their minds right around how to do it and do it differently. First, I would go to the people themselves. I would go to the communities. Because way too often, and maybe some people want to bite my fingers off after I finish, but I can only tell it the way I see it. Way too often, money is given, services provided to the same large organization, whether they're African American organization, Hispanic, Asian, it really matter at the end of the day. But oftentimes the thing that saddens me is that the intent never makes it all the way through. And what I mean by that, the persons that you're trying to bring up, they still may not be able to take advantage of that information because the information is not trickled down exactly where you intended. But there, once you do your part, it's almost like, okay, I've done that, but there is no, they didn't really go to the grounds, to the communities. So if I was that investor, and we all have those communities, so it's not like it's something hard or it's a magic formula. No matter what state, what country you're in, the areas around you that are impoverished, where there are inadequate educational situations, housing, what have you. You know of them already. It's not like those areas are secrets. you know the underrepresented populations within your area. But who do you know actually goes to the ground level, boots on the floor, and go into those communities providing resources? Instead of giving millions and billions of dollars to organizations and creating these flourish programs that sound great and look great, on paper and on web pages and landing pages, with that same money, I mean, you could like slash it in half. You can get volunteers to spread your message within those communities. Why don't you find a point of contact in the real communities that you actually want to reach? Provide employment versus donating millions to this organization to do this in this area. Hire some of the out of work people that are there. Start these programs. Start it in the community, because that's something I've seen throughout my lifespan that has diminished. Where are the community programs where you're not looking for an entrance fee, where you're actually connecting the community and providing this information? If that makes sense. And I can elaborate on any point if you want to.
So, what I'm hearing what you're saying is, do you believe? Now, this is interesting because this podcast is about not being politically correct because I want real
Right.
answers about real problems, right? Would you say that they create these initiatives, millions, billions, whatever it is, but then they already have made up their mind about who they're going to give it to, right? So it's like, yeah, we're going to do the whole process. We're going to get all these people to do the, whatever it is, submissions or the applications, but we already kind of made up our mind who we want. Would you say that's the case?
Yes. Often, I'm not saying all the times, but oftentimes it is, because we don't, just like a commercial, you don't look at the fine print because you're not that close to the screen. You don't see the warning labels and the small print at the bottom. You just see the majority of the commercial. So the purpose is never really served. But the person that created the program, donated the money, they can pretty much rest easy because they did something. Whether it works or not, you can't say they didn't do anything. They did something, but that's why you don't see any change, because we have to get away from what looks good, what sounds good. I'm a bottom line person. If I have to see the change, I have to see the effect. Um, you know, it has to be something tangible. You can't just throw money at things all the time. You just can't, you know, give these glorious speeches and how you want this and that to change. Show me the change. Show me what you're doing. Show me how you affect um, the person like down the street from me who wants to get into technology but um, can't afford to go to school, does not have transportation. Here in South Carolina, there are still rural areas that don't have adequate broadband and internet services. I mean, I can drive like 30 miles from where I am right now in Blythewood, South Carolina, and lose all kind of networking power on my cell phone and everything. So how are we supposed to have an equal opportunity? It's like, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I'm not a financial analyst, but I just try to make common sense out of things. It's like, and I see the money, I see the grants, I see the programs, but I'm just like, okay, they just in the wrong targeted areas. It's like you want to help these people, but you have to have A, B, and C or D to apply for the grant. And it's like, if I don't have, access to this program or this community group, then how am I supposed to even know that it exists? I mean, the radio stations. I'll take it real basic. The radio stations that certain demographics in your area listen to. You can look that up in the statistical data, because this is the day of analytics. Just AI is just everywhere, so you can track who the number one consumer is on a platform, Facebook or a radio network or TV channel. And so you have your target area right there. But why are they not getting the information? Because with me, like I said at the beginning, I'm very eclectic, and I like to be very well rounded. So for me, I can listen to NPR radio and get all of this educational information and updates and these community events. But if I listen to, just for example, an R&B station on the radio, I will not hear any of that. So, you know, I will hear just like, you see in a visual when you drive down the street, I'll hear commercials or advertisement about payday loans or, how I can get a title loan on my car or, those type of things. And I'm really getting really deep in AI. And it's just like a old school mind trick. So it's like, they target what they want to target and market to you, and the other things they don't worry about. And if it's different, I just would like somebody to show me.
Yeah, I totally can understand what you're saying. This is the part that really gets me because I feel in some cases, not all cases, just to caveat that it's not genuine. And I had a conversation with another lady, and it was around females in cybersecurity and technology. And again, it's going back to the same chat around you've got people up there saying, yeah, we want to be more diverse and include more women, for example. But then in reality, they don't really do anything about it. So it's all just a public relations stunt. And I think that that's the part. I mean, I'm a person of integrity. I say and then I do is what I say I'm going to do. And so that to me is where I believe there's that gap. So you can say what you want, but then you've got to back it up. And I think that these are the common themes that I'm seeing from what you're saying, what other people are saying then as well. And that's why I want to be able to have these conversations to really draw out like, what do we do about this? Because we're not really getting the outcome that we say we want to get. We talk about protecting our countries and our nation and our people and our data, but then we're not really open to, as you alluded to earlier, like talking to people that you wouldn't normally talk to understand new things and learn new things. So I think that that's where we've got to have these conversations to make people aware and how we can make change.
Yes, and for me, I may not say what's politically correct all the time, but I'm like, prove me wrong, because I'm not afraid to voice my opinions and tell it the way that I see it. And I can oftentimes speak from personal experience. And um, another thing that I really don't hear people saying is, and I'm making reference to like with the African American community, is just like everyone that looks like me and maybe from where I'm from is not my sister, not my brother, not someone who has my best interest at hand. There are, like the song you said, there are good and bad in everybody, in everyone, so you can't just assume that because, you provide funding, resources, whatever, to a select group, no matter what, nationality, that it's going to be dispensed, marketed, targeted to the right areas because there are, greed thirsty persons of all shapes, colors, and sizes. And that's something I don't often hear, and I really like to draw a point to, and I get a lot of responses like, yes, we don't talk about that. We spend a lot of time talking about how we've been pigeonholed and we've been done wrong by the powers that be, whatever adjective you provide for these various different groups who it may excel or do different things. But anyway, but we don't talk about the persons within our own communities that are part of the same race that we are, who are either perpetuating and keeping these stereotypes going, far as believing that black females shouldn't be in tech, or we shouldn't go any further than the help desk if we are in tech, or that we don't know as much, or we can't retain enough, as much information as per se a Caucasian male in technology. We have those, and we have persons within our own race who will try, to hold you back, not propel you professionally, and will do things to deter you. So it's not just persons outside of your group, your community, that throw roadblocks in your way. And I just like to state that and kind of wake people up. Don't get so pigeonholed and hyper focused on things not being equitable from one standpoint. If you're going to talk about real true diversity, inclusion, and equity, you have to see it across the board. You can't pick and choose depending on what environment you're speaking in or you're working in. You just can't pick one area that suits you. If you're going to talk about an organization having diversity, inclusion, and equity, you have to tell it all. So, and because I'm just a truth teller, because I get tired of what I call catchphrases, and right now it seems to me that diversity inclusion are becoming like the next big catchphrase. Everybody's just trying to join the bandwagon, and I added equality because you don't see that as much as you see diversity and inclusion.
And continue on with that point. Now, a lot has happened in the world recently. And I know from our conversation and your website that part of your mission is to develop the Stomp the Divide. And I think you raised that earlier between Black tech workers and to fundamentally influence and affect change on our industry that has historically not sought parity with respect to Black work. So now I know this is going to be probably a bit of a prickly topic for some, but I'm just going to explore it anyway because I think that again, I'm going back to we need to address the diversity. We want to broaden out our knowledge as well as we want people to be genuine when they say things. So talk me through this.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's very clearly stated within our mission. But at the same time, if persons they don't have to go by what we say. They can merely go to our website and or to our different events. We have events and we have constant outreach and programs that we're doing on a daily basis. So you can actually see, we don't have to just tell you about the service we provide. You can actually see what we're doing. That's one of the main things that we try to focus on, not just saying, hey, we want to do this, we're going to do that. It's like, hey, and I didn't mention in the beginning, membership is totally free. There is no test. There is no charge. All the services that we provide are totally free. And actually going to our website, once you become a member, you actually see, especially as far as like financial aspect, that we're not charging you anything, but for the services that we provide, you will, like pay somewhere else. But keeping in mind, with the Blacks in Technology, stomping that divide with Blacks in Technology, and the premise, and this is from me, I can only speak for me personally. The premise here is that you have to basically you're starting at home. We as African Americans, we have an African American founder. We have to fix with the Black community first for its tech because that's what we're facing. But keep in mind, if you see our chapters and you see the programming that we have for as present and future, that we are comprised of LGBT. We have Latinx community, very strong membership, involvement, chapter leaders as well. And going back to like the we have different outreach sectors, and we're really stomping that divide between all underrepresented populations. And that's the thing that I love personally. When I joined over a year ago, is that it was that true melting pot. So I get those different perspectives. I get those different background experiences, and we have our experiences, and we're building together with our advice. You have that free mentorship. Everything that you need is provided, and the thing for me is like getting that information and thinking to myself, wow, I never knew that existed. So that's why that's like one of my main functions. So a lot of people may tend to think, okay, it's Blacks in technology. Why not just, something else and just technology for everyone who wants to get into the technology? Basically, we are. We don't turn away anyone. Totally nonprofit. Everything that we do is because we have that passion. We want to fix what is broken, or some people may just perceive it as broken, but we know that it's broken. But we're not just saying, okay, this is broken or this is the problem. We're saying, this is what we're providing you. Almost like giving no excuse, if that's your career path or that's what you want to look into or that's what you want to do or become or fix or solve, create. Here, we're giving you the tools. So it's like, it's up to you, but we're not just leaving you out there. Another case in point, we have an awesome program, which I'm actually a part of. We have a one-on-one mentor mentee program called Converge, where we've actually partnered with one of the largest tech organizations, which is Microsoft, and it's totally free. But you're paired one on one with a mentor, and you're getting the full spectrum where you have someone you can talk to over the phone, email. It's not just like, hey, one time and then they disappear, but they actually give you the advice that you need. They give you the skills. They run over interview practices with you, and you have that option at the end. You may even become hired. And I know we hear that a lot, but I've seen it with actually one of our members who was a mentee, and who had actually faced unemployment due to COVID for like over 10 months. And, before joining Blacks in Technology, just got in and started putting her hands in. I mean, she hit the ground running, and she was just volunteering and helping, and everything just everything just fell into play. But we didn't know that was going to happen. But it just goes to show that hard work pays off, and now she's working for Microsoft. So I say all of that to say is that you start with your community, and it doesn't have to be far as starting with your community far as persons of your race, the persons in your neighborhood, the school districts that are zoned in your area. Like I said, we all pass by those areas each and every day. We know the part, the districts that need more assistance or, resources. Go in there. I mean, that's what we do. And I know that's what I do personally, because I mean, that just, it brings me joy, and that's how I receive my blessings, by helping other people. You have to come a time when you put others truly in front of yourself. And I know how hard it was for me, and especially going into technology, but I didn't let anything stop me. And I didn't do anything by myself. And I know that I'm not on camera or anything, but I'm pretty short in stature, probably like 5'3", and so I'm not very tall. But I tell people, if you could only see the shoulders that I stand on, you would know that I am a giant. I've come from, I stand on the shoulders of people who didn't have adequate education, worked wherever they could to make do, working hard to keep the family going, and make so many different sacrifices so that I had that option to be whatever I wanted to be, to go wherever I wanted to go, you know, not depending on my salary or, who I knew, but just that drive and determination that showed me that you can make something out of nothing. And I see Blacks in Technology, the whole entire foundation, like that, because we have those success stories, persons that didn't have any idea of where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. I mean, even have programs for persons who are recently uh, released from incarceration, but showing them, hey, if you want to do this, you don't just have to get a job or get a career. You can become an entrepreneur. We have great entrepreneur programs. Uh, we have large social media outreach, where we reach those target areas. No matter if it's not all just virtual, or it's not all just you have to have bandwidth. We're actually feet on the grounds in these communities, and we have these job fairs. We have these career fairs. We have these scholarship opportunities for the persons who may not want to go to college or school. Um, Depending on your tech area, and I'm sure you know this, it's like you can just get that certification. They're looking for that experience. This is what you need to do, which fits great with a person that can't invest the money in higher education, or just not, it's not a part of their DNA at that time. So we provide various different opportunities for them to get, most commonly, like free vouchers. We have partnerships with Amazon, um, AWS, where they offer vouchers and provide the training, and you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. And I just say all that to say is that we are reaching the masses. We turn no one away. And we just have all this information, and with all this talent here that we have, and just providing what we have and sharing it so we can bring up the next generation. And even, I'm kind of, I call myself mid-age, but in the professional world, especially in tech, I'm not a youngster. There is a such thing as ageism, but we have older professionals, seasoned professionals that make great mentors, and they're not finished with their journeys. So
Wow, that's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your insight, and you're just genuine about it when you say it. I really, really appreciate it, especially as an Australian person. We say things how it is a lot of the time, so really appreciate that. Now, Belinda, because this is an executive podcast, what would be probably your 3 top tips or advice you want to leave with people so that they can take things away from today's interview? But only 3.
only 3. Well, first and foremost, I would tell our listeners to go to our website for the Blacks in Technology Foundation. Hey, like what you see? Join any chapter you like to join, especially my chapter, Blacks in Technology Columbia. I will welcome you. And that is at https://foundation.blacksintechnology.net. That's first and foremost. Second thing I would like to leave with you is to never give up on your dreams, whether it's within technology, if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you want to save the world. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do, even if they look just like you. Listen to your inner self. And third is just a little excerpt from my favorite book, which is entitled The Art of War by Sun Tzu, where he states that what is his greatest strength? His greatest strength is the perception by others that he is weak. And that has motivated me throughout my career. The perception that I am weak is actually my greatest strength. And it's yours too. And I don't even know you, but I'm sure it's yours too.
I actually love that book, to be really honest with you.
Yes.
So in all my interviews and people asking what's my favorite book, I list that one.
Yes. I give it away as gifts. I'll purchase copies and give them away as gifts.
I love that. That's awesome. No, really, really appreciate that. And I really appreciate your time. So, Belinda, if people have a question for you that I didn't ask you today, how can they go about getting in contact with you?
Well, great. Well, I'll provide my link, but I am on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Also, I have a LinkedIn Blacks in Technology Columbia page as well. And also, we're on Facebook. So you can look at Blacks in Technology Columbia and to find me. And if you need any other resources, I'll make sure that that's publicly available. You can feel free, actually, if you would like to drop me an email. Let me know what you thought about the whole podcast today. I would love, because I am a podcast newbie, so I do not mind whatsoever. And my email address is actually bmceac@blacksintechnology.onmicrosoft.com.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate it, and thanks for giving your time, and thanks for sharing your insight.
Thank you so very much. I really enjoyed myself.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope that you found today's episode useful and you took away a few key points. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get our latest episodes. If you'd like to find out how KBI can help grow your cyber business, then please head over to kbi.digital.
This podcast was brought to you by KBI.media, the voice of cyber.